Do you believe that Allah knows the seen and the unseen?
I want to wear the hijab. I need to wear the hijab.
I support gay rights, right? And I'm Muslim.
So should slavery still be a thing?
Assalamu alaikum. So this video has been popping up on my YouTube feed quite a lot of times. Conservative Muslims versus liberal Muslims. It's a video made by Jubilee, and yesterday I posted a poll on my YouTube community tab asking you guys whether I should do a reaction to this video or not, and you guys spoke out, so here is the reaction. Hope you guys enjoy. I have not seen this video as of yet, but I do know the format of Jubilee. I'm not quite a fond of them, but let's see how this goes and let's see what these Muslims say about Islam.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. A good Muslim woman wears a hijab.
First thing I want to make clear is that a Muslim woman who doesn't wear the hijab, that doesn't mean that she's not a good Muslim. The reason that I step forward is because that means that this woman has taken on the challenge of going out every single day wearing a headscarf and wearing the proper clothing. When they go outside wearing the hijab, everyone that looks at them knows they're a Muslim. It's an extremely difficult task that neither me or you will ever understand. But I have an extreme amount of respect for any woman who wears the hijab properly.
Yeah, of course, I agree with you 100%. You know, I look to the Quran, which is our book, and the Sunnah of the Prophet, which is like the way the Prophet lived, peace be upon him. And what does it say about the hijab? You know, hijab is something that's ordained for women in the Quran, you know.
Okay, so let me pause here for a moment. So I sense a problem with the question. Like, what does being good means actually? I mean, hijab is an obligation upon Muslim women in Islam. But if a person does not do hijab, does that make him necessarily a bad person? Let's see what the other side has to say.
Disagree, a step forward.
So I think that one of the main reasons why I disagreed is because of the statement, a good Muslim woman. And I think that you can be a bad Muslim woman as well and wear the hijab. And then also the hijab is not just limited to the headscarf. It's how you dress and how you carry yourself as well.
Correct.
I was gonna say, so actually I do have a question for both of you then. Let's say you meet a Muslim woman, you know, you marry her, she's wearing hijab, but one day she says like, hey, you know, I don't feel like maybe I won't wear hijab anymore. I guess like what are your thoughts be on that and on her decision for doing that?
It's about finding out why they were wearing the hijab in the first place. Like, was it forced upon them by their parents? Or was this something that they came to the conclusion themselves that, oh, you know what, I believe in Islam and I believe it is said in the Quran about wearing the hijab.
Where do you see in the Quran that it requires hijab?
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُلِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. So here the word khimar, it doesn't use the exact word hijab, but the word khimar means headscarf.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess for me, in how I've read the Quran.
Okay, so yeah, Jade is correct at this point. The wording, بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ, the khamar is basically a clothing that covers your hair. And basically it says that the clothing you're covering your hair with, you should also cover your chest with it. So basically this is the Quranic ayat. Also, I have to mention, if I mention any references to the hadith or paraphrase any verses in between the reactions, I'll post them in over the side so you can tally them up later on.
And the translation that I have, the word isn't required, it should. That women should cover their heads and cover their chests. And so that's why I hesitate with saying that it's an obligation, because it's more of a, I would say, should isn't must.
So personally, I guess I
Should isn't must. I mean, even if you want to go there, but that's a real bad understanding of the Arabic language. Even if you want to go there, you have hadiths mentioning where the Prophet's wives did the hijab, and it's basically even described in the hadiths to the extent. So, I mean, let's see.
I just took the prompt too literally. I mean, I consider myself a good Muslim, alhamdulillah, but I don't wear the hijab, obviously. Even if the Quran doesn't specifically say that this is required, the interpretation of the Quran has said that it is required, and I do believe that. I know it seems kind of contradicting that I'm a conservative Muslim and I don't wear the hijab. I don't think I'm ready to kind of wear the hijab yet. I want to wear the hijab. I need to wear the hijab.
I agree with her, Sister Lamia, and I hope may Allah strengthen her to do that part. But this is the right attitude. If you're doing something, some sin, or you're not doing an obligation, you should know that it is an obligation, and you should try to work on it. Move one step forward every single day. There's no need to just sit there and be in despair that you cannot do it. Like Sister Lamia said, that she wants to wear it. May Allah give her strength to do that. Alhamdulillah for her.
Acting on homosexuality is a sin.
I mean, that's pretty clear. You should. I mean, two people that didn't step forward. Let's see.
I believe that acting on homosexuality is a sin, especially like if you were expressing sexual desire, because that should take place between a man and a woman under the sanction of marriage. So that is the reason why I do feel as though it is a sin.
And it's pretty clear in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِّن دُونِ النِّسَاءِ. Do you guys prefer men over women? When he's talking to the people of Lut. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says that one of the biggest problems for the ummah is the sin of Lut, or the people of Lut.
Again, we could just all agree, this is not our personal opinion or anything. In the end of the day, when it comes to religion, our personal opinion doesn't matter, right?
It does not.
Doesn't matter. This is what God ordained for us. This is the natural way of humans. Once we start diving in and wanting whatever we want, it just, where does it end at that point? When is it going to come to incest next? For instance, in America or in the West.
Okay, so before Mahmoud moves on to another point, I really like his point. When it comes to God's laws, should we change God's laws based on our feelings, or should we align our feelings or subject ourselves, our will, to align with the God's law? Which one is superior? See, if we prefer our own feelings, we become a person, as described in the Quran, a person who takes his own desire as God. Because we are basically preferring our own feelings, our own opinion, which are shaped by society, our culture where we live in, to make a preference over the laws which are described by God. So I really agree with Mahmoud and I applaud him for that. Let's move on to his points.
West, homosexuality 30 years ago wasn't accepted, or 40, 50 years ago, but now it's acceptable. This is the liberal idea, right? The subjective morality, it just shifts. It shifts based on the time. We don't shift in our religion. My question for liberal Muslims would be, who dictates objective morality? Islam, as God tells us in the Quran, is a religion in the middle. So it has some aspects that you have to believe in from God, and some things that are a little bit more leeway for you. But you have to understand which ones are which.
Okay, so the question of what is objective morality, is really, really a good question. Because who determines what is right and wrong? If another human determines something is right, or a group of humans determines something is right, what makes their opinion better than yours opinion? You both are humans, equal in value, right? But if God decides something is good and bad, then whether you agree or disagree, your opinion, your personal opinion does not matter, which ties into the last point he said before. I'm interested to hear the thoughts of these two individuals who are coming on the stage right now. On the stools, I mean.
May I start? Yeah, I don't believe that acting on homosexuality is a sin at all. There's so much to get into. In the story of Prophet Lot itself, you see that they weren't condemned because the people of Prophet Lot were coming to his house to have sex with the men who were disguised as angels, but you can look at it as a condemnation of rape and abuse itself and mistreatment of strangers. And the Quran verse that you cited as well, within that verse, Allah uses the prefix al, which means the, and there's interpretations that exist that say that specifically is talking about those men specifically who leave those women specifically. So,
okay. 21st century revisionist interpretation of the Quran which don't agree with the classical scholarship of 1400 years ago. Just making that clear. Let's start.
Meaning that those men who did that had wives that they left to go rape these, or try to attempt to rape these guests in an attempt to bring humiliation upon the Prophet and sorry, I'm getting a little emotional.
Okay, so to comment on this, her point there, right there, she said basically that the condemnation was because these people were going to the Prophet's house, Prophet Lot's house, to rape the angel, basically, not because they were being homosexual necessarily. But the thing is, the Prophet Lut, peace be upon him, I'll paraphrase the reply, he says something up to this point that you should go to your wives. Why do you come to men? If he's saying that it is rape, then how bad does it sound? You should go rape your wife instead of raping this man. Does that sound like something a prophet would say, or does that sound like something that a Quran will mention? I don't think so. This interpretation has so many flaws with that.
Basically, there's different interpretations of the story of Prophet Lut. One interpretation is that it's about homosexuality, and there are other interpretations throughout history that says it wasn't about homosexuality, but for some reason the interpretation that it is condemning homosexuality is the dominant narrative.
It's the dominant narrative because it has been attributed by the classical scholars, the Prophet peace be upon him himself, and the companions of the Prophet. That's the reason.
And I think that narrative seriously needs to be contended with, because we're saying that being homosexual or being bisexual or being anything other than heterosexual is a sin. But Allah creates you like that. Allah creates people who are intersex. Like intersex people exist in this world. And so I think there's a lot of different interpretations out there about the story of Prophet Lut. And I think the central point in it is contending with the fact that people use sex as a weapon for domination, weapon for humiliation. That's a real issue. And being homosexual, being something that you were naturally created, isn't. My experience being a queer Muslim woman in America has been beautiful. Alhamdulillah, I've met and have been a part of a beautiful Muslim community that is a mix of queer Muslims and not. I don't think I've ever experienced backlash, at least to my face, for being queer and Muslim. Mostly questions or curiosity, but it hasn't ever been anything that felt like hurtful or unsafe.
So there's a couple different points that you said that I want to rebuttal and respond to. So the first one being that you said being homosexual, being bisexual, all of those things is a sin. First of all, that's incorrect. Being any of those things in itself is not a sin. So that's why when the prompt is acting on homosexuality, that is the sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. He does not burden a soul with anything more than it can take. As a Muslim, you believe that, like you just said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us all, and He created homosexual people with those people with those tendencies for a reason. But at the same time, this whole life is a test, right?
Yep.
And for the person who has those tendencies, then that's an extremely difficult test that they're going to have to go on with for the rest of their lives.
But that's an assumption that that is the only test. What if the test is living in a world that hates you, that thinks that you cannot act on a desire of love, of consensual love, but still being committed to Allah? What if that's the test itself?
That's part
and
of
that's
it.
what I think is the test.
I mean, the point is fair, I grant that, but the problem is that you are basically saying that the rules of this world are not aligned with the rules of Allah. So why don't we go with the rules of the world? Consensual sex. I mean, there are clear hadiths from the Prophet, peace be upon him, where sex between same genders is not allowed. And to tie it with the previous point that I mentioned, that you can be born homosexual with homosexual tendencies, attracted to men, but to act upon those tendencies, if you don't act upon this tendency, you are granted a greater reward. If you want a prime example, and I think it's a very good example, here let me. So, Blogging Theology, channel run by Brother Paul Williams, and he is a person with homosexual tendencies. but he does not act upon these tendencies, and his channel is quite fruitful, alhamdulillah. If you haven't already, please do check his channel out. It's a personal recommendation from me. It's quite a brilliant academic as well. So yeah, there are prime examples of people who have homosexual tendencies who don't act upon them, and it's quite possible.
I would say
And that's the interpretation out there that we're not talking about.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I would just also like to add, the Quran also kind of is about the nature, right? The nature of life, and so homosexuality, not homosexuality, acting upon homosexuality goes against the nature of why we were born. Yeah, and so we were born.
I don't usually like that argument because for or against this debate in homosexuality, because animals do a lot of things that humans don't do. Being natural, animals kill their offsprings, animals have incest, but humans don't do that. We have our own moral code, so it's not particularly a strong argument. Basically, if I had to go through an argument, I'd go through with that Islamic paradigm in place, that from the Quran and from the Sunnah of the Prophet and from the interpretation of the classical scholars.
We were kind of like made in order to procreate, right? We need to
But
we
there's
need
people
to,
who
that's
can't
sunnat
procreate,
al-hayat.
though.
That's the way of life.
But I would disagree that the purpose of being with someone is to procreate, because in the Quran, Allah says that Allah creates mates for us so that we can find love.
No. Wait. Allah created men and women, and woman for men. The word, I think, there is azwaja. Azwaja al-taskunu. And any classical scholarship will tell you that azwaja means men and women, two sexes, male and female. There's no mates where she is trying to dilute the term.
Tranquility and peace. And I think a lot of the reason why a lot of people think that acting upon homosexuality is a sin is because of hadith. And in those small numbers of hadith that are like unambiguously correct, there is no mention of homosexuality in those hadith.
So,
Read Homosexuality in Islam by Dr. Siraj Al-Haq-Kugel. He talks about this extensively. Keisha Ali also talks about this. These are both two contemporary scholars talking about this.
These are minority scholars in the way that. Why is
And
this
that's
only?
fine.
Yeah, no. Why is this an issue only now, but not in all of this time of
It
Islam?
has
which all
always
this,
been an issue.
Okay, so the point raised by Mahmoud was quite good, and that was the point I was pressing on. These two scholars are in the 21st century, living in the West, raised in the West, and they are telling us to reinterpret the Quran. But why hasn't this been an issue for the previous 1400 centuries? Why have the scholars of the 1400 centuries have always said that homosexuality is a major sin?
no,
This
it's
is
not.
an
For sure, it hasn't. The climate we live in nowadays, the
People
liberal
have
mindset.
been queer since the beginning of time.
exactly, they have.
That's
They
what I'm
have.
saying.
No one's denying that.
And people have acted upon that. There's poetry,
And
there's
that's-
erotic
And that's a sin.
homosexual
That's a sin.
poetry.
If you look at every other religion, that's a sin in every religion.
Not quite. I'd not say that. If you say Abrahamic faith, then I'd agree, but not every other religion.
No, it's not. That's
actually-
honestly-
It's not up to me for it to interpret. That's why
course
أطيعوا الله
it is.
وأطيعوا
So
رسوله
what are we
وأولي
supposed
الأمر
to do
منكم.
with
You
the
look up to the
Quran?
people with knowledge. You look up to the people who have dedicated their lives to interpreting this. In
And
the
you
past
can do the same
1400 years,
thing,
I
but
have.
it's
That's what I'm
not-
saying. You can't ignore
It's not
all the
just the
scholars of the
scholars.
1400 years.
I'm not ignoring them, but you can't just say they're the only ones who are correct. I
I'm
just
not.
told you
It's
two
not just
contemporary
one.
scholars who have alternatives.
Two compared to thousands.
Sure.
And there's way more who are also thinking about this.
Yeah, sorry. I really appreciate. I know you're all very passionate about this topic, but I think there's not going to be a middle ground, which is okay. I think the point is just to still have a conversation, and I appreciate that you guys are still listening to each other and talking. But we have to move on to the next prompt. The other side taints the image of Islam.
That's a weird question. I'm
I
interested to
think
hear
that
this.
the reason why I step forward is because I feel like a lot of conservative Muslims, as a Muslim revert, have very strong cultural beliefs. That can be very intimidating for somebody who is new to the religion, and it kind of discounts like who I am and my own deen. So that's why I think that I feel that way, just because of the interactions that I've had with like born Muslims.
Yeah, I love that point because for me personally, people who revert, we say revert obviously because we believe that every person is born Muslim, but then they get changed their creed by their parents, right? People nowadays, they have some weird thing like, oh, if I was born Muslim, like they think they're better and they treat them rudely. And this is not the way of a Muslim, right? The Muslim, we accept everyone as they come to the religion, you know?
I was originally born into Christianity, and then I went on to college to study religious studies. And at that time is whenever I found peace with Islam, and so I decided to revert. I think the reason why I consider myself to be a liberal Muslim versus conservative is because I am a revert, and I know that I have so much more to learn, and I'm open to that. I also believe that within Islam you have free will and free choice to make the correct decision. And so I find a lot of compassion for people in that way because I did live life for many years before Islam.
Okay, before the brother Jared says his point, I'm really quite interested in sister here, and I'm truly alhamdulillah for her accepting Islam and coming into the deen. And I don't think I'd label her as a liberal Muslim. She hasn't been raised any liberal points. It's best if she labels her as that, well, sure, but may Allah guide us and show us and her the right path.
People are so worried about cancel culture. People are so worried about what everyone else thinks. People are so worried about being accepted by society. But who cares? As a Muslim, it's our responsibility to only care about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thinks and not care about what anyone else thinks.
Okay, so I guess why I disagreed with the prompt is because I feel Islam is way stronger to be kind of tainted by a group within it, you know. I may not agree with everything that liberal Muslims think or view, but that doesn't mean I feel like they are like this big negative thing on Islam, because I just don't feel like Islam can be affected by it.
Yeah, I have quite a wonderful line for that. Islam is perfect, Muslims are not. Don't judge Islam by the actions of the Muslims. Judge Islam on its own rules and regulations. Islam cannot be changed. Muslims can disobey God.
I agree that in the fact that Islam itself can't be. The reason I agreed is because the perception of Islam, I feel like that's what's being affected.
I disagree with that. I don't think that's true. I don't think having those different ideologies really taint either side, because it's not like someone's gonna see like, for example, like, you might not agree with this, but I support gay rights, right? And I'm Muslim. And no one's looking at me and be like, oh, now all Muslims support gay rights. I'm like, no, it's not true. It's just my personal preference. And that's why I kind of disagree with both of you guys. When you guys say personal opinion doesn't matter in religion, I feel like it does at the end of the day, because religion is about who you are too.
Personal opinion is okay until it goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said or what the Prophet, peace be upon him, has said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No one's saying your opinion doesn't matter. Everybody's opinion matters. But in relation to Islam, your opinion isn't going to change the ruling. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that, yeah.
But the ruling itself comes from people's opinions. You realize that, right? Like jurists, like that is what you do with the law. You interpret the law and you make a ruling from it based on that.
It's important to kind of like, it's important to note that, you know, people who kind of interpreted the Quran, like you're saying, they're not just like normal people like me and you.
But
They've kind of like, no, they are, but like those are like scholars who kind of, like you said, dedicated their life to kind of studying the Quran.
Of course. And I think those people are also biased, like everyone, right? Like everyone has their...
I don't think in the case of Quran that can be.
Okay. Let me break it down for you. So people living companion of the Prophet, getting directly into the Prophet, the Imams, and all the scholarly opinion from throughout the 1400 centuries. All of these people are biased according to her. But these few scholars in the 21st century who are raised in a liberal society, who are trying to conform Islam to the principle of the liberal society, are not biased. Which one is biased? You decide.
possible?
It is possible because we're humans. All humans are biased and subjective because the fact that we're human, we have a different experience. I'm going to interpret something or look at something completely different than another human being is because that's the nature of our existence. It's subjective.
Just to make it clear, this religion is done. It has been perfected as Allah tells us in the Quran. It's not like these scholars are just coming in and changing something new. This is something that we get it from a source. We always have to go to the higher truth. The higher truth is the Prophet and what the companions learned from the Prophet, right? Because if we're just going to go, then yes, exactly your point, because humans are subject on that bias, right? But we get it from the best source, which is our Prophet, right? If we don't follow the Prophet, who are we going to follow?
It's acceptable for a Muslim man to have more than one wife.
I mean, come on. Well, we have one person. Zan.
I guess for me, I think monogamy is not for everyone. And so I think Muslim men, Muslim women can have more than one partner if it's consensual.
God tells us in the Quran that you can marry up to 4, but the precaution is that you maintain equity between them. And if you can't, then you have to stick to 1. You mentioned that men and women, this is the difference, right? Because only men in this way. A man can marry up to 4 because think of this situation. Say for instance, he had more than one wife, say for instance 4 wives, right? And he gets one of them pregnant, right? Everyone's going to know who the husband is and who the father is. If a woman has more than one husband, someone gets her pregnant, no one's going to know who the father is. That's not the exact reason, but I'm saying just an example, just to think about it, And in the end of the day, this is because Allah tells us the way.
Yeah. I mean, I was not going to bring up this point when she said men and women, but Brother Mahmoud addresses quite clearly. If Allah says that it is only men who have to have more wives and the women do not, who are you to interpret the Quran and say that women should also have that right? It's not a right given by Allah. It's not in the law of Allah. It's not in the Sharia.
We live in a vastly different time. We view women differently in this world. Just because that is what the Quran said in that context doesn't mean that we can't interpret differently now.
Okay, before we move forward, let's break that point. Let me ask you, the viewers, a question. Does Allah know past, present, and the future? Yes. Does Allah know that in the 21st century, in 2022, December, women would have some different requirements if they had any? Yes. So Quran as a final book should have all the guidance till the day of judgment, and thus we cannot reinterpret or remake the laws or the rights that are given by Allah. This is the Sharia of Allah we are talking about. We are not changing that.
Okay, maybe I'm the old-fashioned one because I always believe I believe marriage is always like a love marriage. I don't think you can love 4 people at the same time. That's just my personal opinion. If you do get married to the person that you want to be with the rest of your life and the person you share love with, not someone you just get married because you have the authority to marry up to 4 people. So
you could have a love marriage, but you can also have an institution of marriage. And I also think that that's what Islam kind of bases marriage around as well, right? Because even the model modeled after the Prophet, peace be unto him, when it came to him having 4 wives, it was based off of actually merging tribes together, political reasons, and also someone was a widow. So with that being said, I think that it's just different, and I think that that's one of the topics that we kind of have to seek the wisdom behind before we just make it about today's times.
Yeah, can men marry 4 wives, 4 women? Yes, but you can't. I mean, you can't be
unjust.
Yeah, you can't be just with all the 4 of them.
The 4 wives have to agree to it too. It
Exactly.
Can't be,
If you want to marry someone
exactly.
else, a lot of women themselves don't even want. They're not okay with that.
So yeah.
Okay, so on that point, according to the Sharia of Islam, it is good that you consult with your wife, but it is not an obligation. You can do out of your good heart, out of good conscience, but it is not per se an obligation to do it. To inform another wife if you want to marry another woman.
Yeah, you can do it, but you'll never be able to do it the right way, so don't do it,
Christianity deserves the same scrutiny as Islam.
I'm interested to hear the answer of that question.
Yeah, I think that Islam is very scrutinized in Western media specifically for their practices because if you are following the word by text, a lot of it doesn't align with what Western values hold. Islam has always been a target for people on the Western side, people around the world, and I think Christianity has always been seen as kind of just like this top of the level religion. It's like, you're a Christian, you're a good person, you can't do no wrong.
Yeah, I think all religions need scrutiny. I think any religion can be taken to extremes. You cannot understand certain things and so do things that are harmful to others. In terms of Christian history, you had the Crusades, and Islamic history, you also had colonialism as well. So yeah, every religion needs to be scrutinized. We can't just follow blindly.
Okay, so before the other people give their opinion, let me give you my 2 cents on this. Does Christianity deserve the same scrutiny as Islam? I mean, if you ask me, I'd say let's scrutinize Christianity on the same principle we scrutinize Islam. Let's look at the historicity of the Bible. We don't have the complete manuscript of the Bible for the first 3 centuries. If you look at Islam, we have almost 96.4% of the Quran in the first century alone. Manuscripts, we scrutinize it in logical parameters. We have the LPT, the logical problem of Trinity, the logical problem which has not been solved up till now. We don't have that kind of logical problem with the Tawheed. And all of these problems, if we scrutinize the Christianity on the same basis as Islam, the Gospels that represent in the Christianity would not even match up to the most weakest of hadiths we have in the chain, because we don't even have the chain of transmission of these Gospels. So I think it's okay to scrutinize any religion per se, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, or any other faith out there, because to scrutinize things and to think about things, these allow us to basically approach the truth, to reach out, to sift through the coal and find the diamond that is Islam.
Yeah, I think the question was hard for me to answer because I don't believe that any religion really needs scrutiny. I think that for me as a born Christian, I can understand why Christianity and Islam are looked at kind of differently just based on like rituals and like the way that it's expressed out into the world. But I guess the question kind of just like caught me up with the scrutiny part. Like, what exactly are we scrutinizing and why?
I agree. There shouldn't be any scrutiny on any religion, and because why do I say this? Because Allah tells us in the Quran when He gave the revelation to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, talking to because who were the people in Mecca? They were pagans, right? He told them don't attack their gods, don't say anything bad to their gods, and also when Allah tells us, God tells us when we're talking to Ahlul Kitab, meaning the people of the book, the Christians and the Jews, we speak in a nice way.
Okay, so on that point, I think I get the problem here. They are conflating scrutiny with insults. These are not two same terms. Let me take my example. If someone approaches me and calls me names or swears at me for some things that I might have done wrong, that's insulting a person. But if someone comes to me and asks me, "Hey Abdullah, you did this thing and I don't think it's right. Can you tell me why you did it? Or I think you did this wrong. Can we talk about that?" That's scrutinizing, that's correcting, that's questioning. It's not equal to insulting. Of course, as a Muslim, I am prohibited from insulting other faiths. That's a command in the Quran.
I just don't like how Islam gets treated worldwide in the modern sense. I think we're always like perceived as the bad guy. It's always us, It's always attack this, Islam did, or you live in an Islamic country, it's violence, stuff like that. So I definitely think it's unfair how we're always like the scapegoat for religions. I grew up in a more dominant white suburb in Illinois. I suffered heavy racism like every day in middle school and elementary school. The original remarks, terrorist, go back to your country, all that stuff. Growing up as a kid, I was religious, but then as I got to high school and college and started forming my own thoughts, I kind of went away from Islam. I kind of explored other things, but then the last like 3 to 4 years, I started reading more about Islam. I started practicing more because I finally had my own like freedom to actually practice it and not have my dad or my parents like, "Oh, you have to do this, you have to do that." So I definitely felt more like comfortable practicing on my own.
The Quran must be reinterpreted for the 21st century.
Why am I not surprised?
Well, I feel like this is kind of like the crux of what I've been saying this whole time. You always need to reinterpret the Quran. Whoever is looking at the Quran, whoever is reading it, needs to interpret it, needs to understand what Allah is telling that person. All the information, everything that we're learning is about getting us closer to a just future. And in the time of the Prophet, slavery was well and alive. The Quran never outright abolished slavery, but people, through their interpretation, decided that the Quran is leading us to a future where slavery shouldn't be allowed because it's unjust.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so before we move forward, first of all, the slavery at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was not equal to the transatlantic slavery that we had in the modern history like 500 years ago. Second of all, Quran does say that slavery is outright abolished. In a surah, I don't know the verse specifically, I'll paraphrase it. It says basically that what is the right path or what is the good path, and it says the good path is to free a slave. So it's a direct command. In another verse, is mentioned that zakat can be used to free a slave. And through the Prophet Sunnah, we know that all kind of slavery was prohibited. To make a free person a slave was prohibited except in the case of prisoner of wars. And that was only done so in the case of prisoner of war. Even those people were not treated as slaves as such. They were clothed like their masters, they were given food like their masters, they ate like their master, and they were basically, if you want to look at it in the modern context, they were basically paid servants. Essentially, they could even gain their freedom for their masters. If you want to compare it to the prison system where you have forced labor by the prisoners. Same case.
I agree. I think the Quran as a text is a holy text that should never be changed or obviously rewritten. Like that's off the table. But I think interpretation, kind of we talked about the whole time, matters. I've consulted with different mosque leaders, different people who actually study Islam, and not once there was a big overlap because they have their own interpretation of what the Quran is into the modern world. So I just think in general there definitely should be a more modern interpretation.
The first thing is, so we as Muslims believe that obviously the Quran is the word of God, and no one is disagreeing with the fact that society has changed. Do you believe that Allah knows the seen and the unseen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew what was going to happen in the future. He knew what was going to happen to society. And when revealing the Quran is timeless. Any reinterpretation of the Quran, I believe, is incorrect, because then what would differ the Quran from the Bible?
So
I love Brother Jade for mentioning that point. I mean, I just brought up that point a bit earlier, but that's a very important point.
should slavery still be a thing?
Okay, and then we went downhill. Is still decontextualizing slavery to fit her own narrative. May Allah guide her.
No, but go ahead.
Okay, the slavery is a whole other topic. Slavery in the time of the Prophet was not the same as the trends, whatever.
Just the act of owning another human being.
That's a whole other thing. They were basically just a servant. They could buy their own freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They had rights. They weren't treated like an animal.
Yep.
Like how, as we see in our history in America, how it was.
Yep.
This is not what it was. Going back to the actual prompt, the Quran is a rahmah in the people. It's a mercy for the humans Allah gave us to, right? The Quran is the words of Allah, right, of God.
In the simplest form, I just believe that the Quran is like a sacred text, and sacred text as a whole just should not be touched. When I think about reinterpretations, I almost think about amendments in a way. If we believe that the Prophet, peace be unto him, is the last and final messenger, then whatever he was revealed to him, it is that.
You can't reinterpret everything, because the second you open up one thing for reinterpretation, you're opening up the whole religion for reinterpretation.
Mm-hmm. It's not opening up the whole religion. The religion itself is devotion to Allah alone. That is what Allah says.
Okay, so, I mean, is it finished?
In Surah Al-Baqarah, that Islam equals devotion to a religion. Islam equals devotion to Allah alone.
Of course.
Alright, so it's finished. Just wanted to wait for it to finish to mention one point. So let's follow her logic. Islam equals devotion to Allah. Allah says in the Quran to follow the Prophet, peace be upon him, Atiullah wa Atiur Rasul. The Prophet interprets the Quran and basically gives his hikmah to the companions around him. The companions then later teach their students that hikmah, that wisdom, that understanding of the Quran. And in this way, we have basically the jurisprudence, the Sharia law, the interpretation of the Quran spread throughout the span of the 1400 years. Why is she now disagreeing with that? Following her logic, the devotion to Allah would equal devotion to the Sharia and the interpretation of the Sharia done by the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the companions, and basically the scholars, the high caliber scholars of the 14th centuries. Yeah, I mean, it's finished. So it was quite an interesting video, and it was quite interesting to hear both of your thoughts. And I mean, it was your guys' wish. So if you want more content like this, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, take care. Assalamu alaikum.